welcome to another episode of The Turning Point, powered by U-Turn Youth Consulting. I am honored to be joined tonight by some of my favorite men. I got a lot of them that's not in the room. And we definitely want to welcome you to a hardcore, real conversation. U-Turn's mission is really to address the intersections between systems that impact our families, but definitely looking at how they also contribute to the backstories and lived experiences of our youth and families. We talk about systems all the time. So we talk about the criminal justice system, the educational system, you name it, we address it. But one of the systems that have really been at the hardcore of what we do is the family system. That's also the system that we don't want to talk about because that means, fellas, we have to be held accountable. So U-Turn really started last year the concept of the Black Love series. Tonight we continue the Black Love series, Black Men, Black Love, the mental health edition, which will drop before Black History is over because we believe that we are currently making Black history. The mere fact that we're having these conversations, the mere fact that we're addressing issues that impact our communities matters. But more importantly, the mere fact that we're giving men an opportunity to speak about their own issues and not speaking for them, I think matters. So I take the chance and the opportunity to wholeheartedly welcome each one of you. Thank you for being here. It is a vast room of knowledge. They're all different ages. Some of them are married, some of them ain't married, some of them got babies, some of them ain't got babies. Whatever it is, some of them got degrees, some of them don't. Whatever it is, the idea is we just want to make sure that we were able to center what it is to be a Black man and to really give voice to being a Black man. So I welcome you. This year, however, I decided that I would not host the conversation. I would allow a man to host a man's conversation. So I now turn it over to the superb, one of my favorite partners, one of the people that I can call at any time and say, I need you to host something. And he's like, tell me where I need to be. So your host tonight will be Mr. Ishmael Joseph. Thank you.
Yeah. What's up, fellas? All right. Thank you so much for the intro, man. You feel special.
You are special.
I appreciate it. So, all right, well, again, welcome you guys to Black Men, Black Love, the Roundtable, the Mental Health Edition. Again, this discussion tonight is really a deep dive that we're going to all take into the term mental health. What does that mean for us as Black men in our community? So there's a couple of ground rules I want us to kind of talk about, and we're open to discussing the ground rules with our audience as well. And the ground rules are as such. Number one, openness. Like, mental health should not be a taboo subject when it comes up to us as Black men. Would you guys agree? Yes, yes?
Yes.
All right. The second ground rule is we want to have a non-judgmental approach. Non-judgmental approach. So when we tackle issues around mental health and emotional well-being, we often find that people have different value systems, right? People have different core belief systems. So we want to respect those, and people have different backstories. So we also want to take those into consideration. So we want to have a non-judgmental approach. Another ground rule, make no assumptions. Make no assumptions, brothers, all right? In addition to us not judging the viewpoints of others, we also want to make sure that we don't make assumptions about people's values, their attitudes, their life experiences, faith values, cultural values, and of course their feelings. And then last but not least, ground rule number 4, ask questions. I'm not the expert, I'm a learner just like all of us, okay? So none of us here are experts except for one person. We ain't gonna point no, I'm just joking. Right? So again, we're all learners and we're all here to learn. Would you guys agree? Yes or yes?
Yes.
All right, cool. So kind of set the tone for our conversation today. I know that we're going to have one or two experiences today. It's either we're going to have the experience of a question or an experience of a statement. Okay. And us as men, the way we communicate questions and statements around 3 words, I say. It's called you good, bruh. All right? You know what I mean? So it's either we even have a question that say, you good, bruh? Or a statement that say, you good, bruh. All right? So I want you to turn to your brother next to you and just tell him, you good, bruh. Give him that. You good.
You good, bro. You good, bro. You good, bro. You good, bro.
You know what I mean? So I want us to shift from the question of, you good, bruh, to at the end of our dialogue, we all want to leave this table by saying, you good, bruh. And you good, bruh means, yo, I got you. I understand where you're coming from. I understand your perspective. I may not be able to have the same experience as you or your backstory, but no matter what, I got your back. Right? I got your back. You good, bro.
That's good. I'm good.
You good. Right? So, all right. So let's kind of take a shift. So a couple of questions I'm gonna throw out, and I want us to have this conversation, this dialogue. But I wanted to talk about some of these statistics that were just recently released. Now, we find that traditional masculinity roles and ideas come across a variety of different racial and ethnic backgrounds, right? And these masculinity ideas, what they do, they cause us as men to struggle in being vulnerable, and it causes us as men to struggle in sharing our emotions, right? Making us even more reluctant to even reach out if we need any kind of help. There was some research that was conducted by the Behavioral Medicine magazine, and these researchers are researchers who examine black masculinity and the norms that affect help-seeking behaviors among black men, and they all found negative outcomes. Negative outcomes among us as black men reaching out for help. Here's what they said. They said black masculinity worsened the psychological and emotional challenges such as depression, anxiety, and PTSD, and even prevented men from seeking help, black men, from seeking help to address those challenges. This idea behind masculinity, right? Black masculinity. So my first question to you gentlemen, and anybody can jump in and answer, okay, this is not you gotta raise your hand and wait for me to respond to you. Answer as you see fit. From your own life experiences, when you think of the term mental health, like really think about that term mental health, what feelings, what emotions or thoughts immediately come to mind for you? When you think of that term mental health, as soon as somebody says it, you hear it, whether it's heard on the radio or television or in conversation or in passing people, when you think of that term mental health, what immediate emotions, thoughts, and feelings come out of you as a result of you hearing that term?
I think for me, thinking about that, especially with your statement prior to that, I just think of mental health, especially from a black man's perspective, is like my capacity to what I can handle, what I can take on.
Right.
You know, yeah, I might think about the emotions and things like that, but then the capacity, you know, and sometimes I do think that they have a judgmental view of what a black man can take. You know, they have something out there on what they feel that we can take. And the question is that correct?
Anybody else?
I feel like as a young black man, I think it's like a sense of anxiety when I hear the word mental health kind of thing.
Oh wow.
That when it's brought up kind of thing. So
Anxiety?
yeah, kind of like a feeling of anxiety. That's how I feel.
Where do you think that comes from? Where does that stem from?
I think it comes from just being who I am. You know what I mean? It's just I think coming from where I come from, I think because my dad, he was born in the 50s and stuff like that. So I got kind of that old school kind of thing. So I wasn't meant to show like how I really express myself. You know what I mean? But I think that I grew up. My mom, she introduced me to Christianity kind of thing like that.
Right.
So me just getting to know Christ and stuff like that, I guess it kind of planted in me how to be a man kind of thing. So you know what I mean?
Right.
I could be what's the word? Yeah, advocate.
So to add on to what he said, right? And you said when we think about mental health,
Right.
honestly, when I think about mental health, I don't know what to think. You know, I come from a culture. For many of you guys, I'm Haitian, so in my culture,
bro.
I'm
You know what I mean? You know, you ain't gonna go by that too fast, bro. Like you get a slide, I'm Asian, like that's just normal. You know what I mean? That's excellence right there, my brother.
You good, bro.
Right, you good, bro.
that's a statement right there. I'm telling y'all.
Yeah.
But you know, I come from a culture where we don't know what mental health is. We don't really understand it. We don't know how to deal with it. You know, and so what he said with his parents, you know, I grew up. I never saw my dad show any emotion or any adult male role model in my life or any adult male at all. So coming to America, I heard people talking about mental health. I'm like, all right, what is that? All right, so I honestly don't really understand it. You know, I know depression and anxiety, and I don't know where to go with it. You know, it's something that I really wish that I could get into it and express myself as a man. But coming from that background, I honestly don't know how to do that because I don't understand it.
Wow. What else, gentlemen? Come on. Y'all tell me what you
You know,
think about mental health.
it's funny he brought that up because my wife and I were having this discussion about a week ago, not even realizing our topic was going to be on health. And there was something, I think, in our personal life, I can't remember exactly what it was, but, I told her, I said, honey, I had no idea what the word mental health meant, because I grew up in the islands. So in the islands, you don't know anything about mental health, all this stuff that you're dealing with here in America. So even though I left the islands when I was 14 years old, there's no such thing in these islands, Bahamas, Turks, and those islands, there's no such thing as getting mental health, seeking mental health. There's no such thing. So I only started hearing about mental health, of course, in college, and still you were like, mental health,
Right.
Because again, when you're raised in that environment, in that culture, you're in some way being protected also from all those outside elements as a young boy or as a man.
Right.
So you really don't see, it's all structured, dad goes to work, mom stays home, take care of the kids,
Right,
cook,
right,
clean, all that
right.
other stuff, Fortunately for me, I was raised in a house with all women. So my father was absent for most of my life, and my uncle who raised me was the breadwinner, so he was doing everything. So again, what is mental health? For me, I'm 52, and I didn't realize about mental health, again, really start digging deep into probably 15 years ago when this whole issue began to come around about, guys seeking mental health. And, it's a funny story. About 15, 17 years ago, maybe about 15 years ago, I was working at a barbershop. And in this barbershop, there was a young lady who, she all had mostly men, coming in and guys as barbers. So I approached her one day. I said, you know what? I said, maybe you can expand your business. I said, have you ever considered male, kind of a man coming in here, getting a facial, getting a pedicure, getting a manicure, getting them. She said, are you crazy? You can never approach a black man with nothing like, and this is back in probably the mid-90s, right? She said, man, they will close my shop down if I tell a black man he's gonna get a facial. Or I have a girl that's gonna do pedicure or man. Wow. She said, man, get out of here with that nonsense. So years later, I approached my other barber. I said, hey man, have you ever considered putting a part of your barbershop business to cater towards black men?
Right.
Guys come in here, hey, would you like to get a facial? Would you like, do you know about pedicure? And
Right.
now you're not having a man do it, you'll have a female doing it. So at least the visual aspect or the touching aspect will not be so masculinity.
Wow.
I had not one black barbershop that I visited in Miami had that. Wow. Now if you look at barbershops all around, you can go there and get a full, it's on.
Yeah.
So I went to that same barber, I say, man, remember when I approached you? He said, man, that thing is big now. He said, you know how much money I could have, and he could have franchised that had he started this back in the 90s. So again, it's about that mental aspect of, I'm gonna let another man touch my face, but when you're in the sports, because we all grew up, you don't have a problem with the massage, getting a massage from a therapist, a guy, if he's a trainer.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. But now you take you out of the locker room and you put it into a business, you can't touch me there,
It's funny, you see, it's so many and what you're saying is so valuable because there's so much missed opportunity because we're indoctrinated with this idea behind masculinity, you know what I mean? Like even getting a facial, or my wife tried to get me to go get a pedicure, but it's at the same spot that she gets her pedicure. So I'm like frazzled, I don't know where to put my foot. The ladies like, put your feet here. I'm like, I don't know. I feel real uncomfortable.
You don't want
How do I
another
sit?
man walk
You know what I
in and see
mean? Like,
you.
do I just sit back, put my head back, or do I kind of like sit up? And kind of like I'm in prison system. I didn't know what to do, But again, it shows you how we have this masculinity, right? Masculinity, right? That mask our true emotions or being able to express or even enjoy a moment, right?
And the
of
funny thing
vulnerability.
is, other cultures have been doing this for years.
Right.
Hispanics, white men,
Right.
they go and get these stuff done to them and take that time and take care of themselves. But us, oh no.
So that brings me to ask this question. How does culture or your culture play a role in your own mental health?
Okay, I'll take it from there. I think before we can deal with mental health treatment, we got to first address the mental health mistreatment.
Right.
Now, if we're going to talk about something, then we're going to talk about, particularly as a black man, you got to understand what it was and what it may still be to be black in America. Yes, the masks are very necessary. Matter of fact, the masks are very therapeutic. Matter of fact, the mask may save your life.
Right.
And so we are forced to wear those masks.
Right.
Politically, socially, just on the policies that still exist. Just because you said something that we have a certain type of freedom and access, you understand,
Right.
and equity that we really don't have when it comes to policy.
Correct.
And so what this young man just explained, the fear is legitimate.
Right.
It's
Right.
because at the end of the day, mental health, if it doesn't address the mistreatment, then the treatment is a rouge.
Say that again. Well, you got don't go by that. you got to say it again. Say it.
If mental health profession don't address their own mistreatment
Yeah.
of the very people that they're trying to treat,
Right.
then the treatment is a rouge.
Yeah.
And so I think too often black people are the guinea pigs, and particularly black men are the guinea pigs in a history that has caused them, matter of fact, a very profession that actually shaped the policies in society
Right.
that will validate your oppression. And a lot of those policies came by way of the mental health profession to be validated for your mistreatment historically and at this particular present day. They have you stronger than what you are.
Right.
They have you dumber than what you are.
Right.
You understand?
Right.
And so when you have those things, then you have to address that and call that profession out. Matter of fact, speak to the source. And most of the time, we just speaking to the source, not the source.
Right.
So I think a lot of times we need to address the source that's trying to treat us and make them face their mistreatment and find out, oh, what kind of treatment did you get for the mistreatment that you put on us? You can't be my rapist and my therapist.
At the same time.
You can't.
At the same time.
You know, you said something right.
Wow.
And all that is really a connection, because when you talk about, you mentioned something earlier when you talk about the protection, right? Was it really protection? But yes, the families were trying to protect us from something.
Yeah. Correct.
You know, they were trying to protect us from something. That's why it does seem so foreign to a lot of the youth. It was foreign to me as well. You know, coming into a system, because again, they were very unsure, and because they knew the systems that were in place was mistreating, was misdiagnosing, was putting labels. So again, they had the fear of like, you know, I don't want my kid to go and to be labeled
Right.
and to be judged
Right.
by somebody else. So I want to protect them. I wanted to help them protect their feelings. I want to help them to create this mask
Right.
for
Right.
themselves. Again, I go back and I think, man, was it really protection that they were protecting me from? Because again, I had to learn about mental health in my later years, but at the same time, maybe even themselves, they weren't even ready to really have that conversation on the sores and the people who given the sores. So if they weren't ready to have that conversation, how could they even have that conversation with myself and tell me, hey, the people that you're going to school with and the systems that you're going to school with may not be beneficial for you, so watch your back.
Right.
Instead of saying that, they just kind of, put a Band-Aid over it.
Right.
And you have to take that Band-Aid off when you get older.
And that's the tough part. I mean, when you talk about culture, you got to go back. We got to tell the whole story, right? As to how they gave us a diagnosis, right? that necessarily wasn't fitting for who we were, and didn't know how to deal with us, and then now we're having to rip off the Band-Aid in our late 30s and 40s and 50s. You know what I mean? So what else? I mean, think about mental health in terms of that term.
Especially when that label had nothing to do with your culture.
Correct.
You know, they didn't ask to say, let me find out how you deal with things in your culture, how your parents deal with things.
So are there really cultural implications surrounding mental health? Or is it something that was put upon us?
Both. Because I think we even misdiagnosed the way that we are effectively treated.
Right.
Being the church, you got to understand, people talk about the church. I'm like, whoa. You talking about the first free institution in the black culture, or particularly the first free institution in the African American culture?
Right.
The first time you can really fully, freely express yourself, that's the first free expression you ever had in your life. So when you're talking about an institution historically that gave birth to your freedoms and then go back and wag your finger at it like it's irrelevant now, I'm like, no, it can never be irrelevant because it matriculates in the very thing you need to function in life, period. And you know what that is? That's your belief.
Right.
And the first thing they went when they wanted to break a slave, you know what they went after? Break his belief.
Yeah.
So that's what made the church so strong, because the church was matriculating and strengthening and solidifying your belief, and everything else will follow. But if your belief broken, you're gonna do bad business. You're gonna be nothing to your family, and you're not gonna be worth nothing belonging. And you have those 4 B's. Those are the 4 B's of being: believing, right? Behaving,
Right.
bartering or business, and belonging. Those are the 4 factual B's you can't help doing. Every human being have to do it. So they went for the top belief, which the top thing, which is to break your belief. And if your belief is broken, everything else is a waste of time.
I want to ask a question, because you mentioned the anxiety part of it, right?
Yeah.
As men, if we begin, as we're getting older, right, become, a young adult, if we're having these fears, how do we begin to break these fears? You got these fears, it wasn't really talked about. Again, the protection factor. Would it really protect me? Because I remember when I was young, I kind of felt like, man, why didn't you talk to me more about this?
Right.
Why didn't you introduce me more about this to prepare me for it?
Right.
But where do you begin to break that anxiety? And I think for me, one of the things is you got to challenge. There has to be some type of challenge, either within yourself, also within the connections in your family.
Right.
You can look at some of the ways you communicate with, with your parents, your mother, your father, even with other people. And I think some of those fears there will help you begin to really understand your own anxiety and our own mental health. But again, I think it's really important to ask ourselves, man, when did we first all broke that fear and really tapped into our mental health?
I think many times we have to do a better job at discovering what the source of that fear is. Because some people, they struggle mentally because their father wasn't in their life.
Okay.
Other people, they struggle mentally because there was a woman they were with that cheated on them and they felt heartbroken. A lot of the times, the people, us men, we struggle mentally because we're broke. And we don't have enough money and we feel like we can't provide. And so analyzing the source of those different struggles, then we could decide how to break it. But many times in our community, we try to resolve mental health issues of maybe our father not being there, or whatever the case is, and we try to resolve that with money. And we try to resolve that with women. And that's obviously not the best solution because that's not the source of your issue. And so I'm not sure where to go to how exactly to discover the source, but doing some self-inventory and saying, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel anxious? Why do I feel afraid? Why do I feel bothered? Why can't I speak about it? Why can't I speak about it with this person but not that person, right? And figuring out that source, I think, will help lead to finding the next best step, the solution.
A lot of times we don't figure out the source. What they teach us is, somebody broke your heart, break somebody else's heart.
Yes.
That's that masculinity, man.
Somebody abuse somebody else.
Somebody hit you, you better not come back to the house and let me know that somebody hit you without you hitting them back.
Boys will say, oh man, she broke your heart, man. Well, go get another one.
Right.
Do this stuff. So again, I think it breeds that cycle of like, man, I'm never going back to the source. Someone is telling me, something is telling me, man, just continue what's happening to you. Give it to somebody else.
But sometimes that source can also be bad information
Say it again.
that's been
You got
passed down from their parents or from their
Right.
grandparents.
Right.
So that's why it's so difficult, even when you get to that level or that age, to start thinking, okay, where did this come from, or how do I fix it? It's hard because the people that you look up to help you fix it, they don't even have the mental capacity or the know-it-all to even help you. So then you start looking, well, how far did this go back? Great-grandma or grandma or dad or, so sometimes, especially nowadays, with information technology, all this information age, it's really up to us. It kind of boils down to it because, again, who are we going to go back and ask for help? The people who really don't know?
that becomes a problem when you gotta pull yourself up by your own
It does.
bootstraps, man.
It does.
You know what I mean? I'm thinking about you saying, and you guys mentioned it, I think you mentioned the term anxiety, right? You didn't just throw out that term because it didn't mean something to you, right? Words have meaning, words have power. You know, so there's a source of your anxiety, and then when you can't really trace it, or like you said, when you trace where the source of your anxiety comes back to, and then you look at that person to help you, they can't help. I take it from a Haitian culture perspective, right? From my culture, like, we weren't taught to say how we feel. It was just bottle it up. You know what I mean? Especially as a young black man. Like, I remember my mom raising me saying, you know, my dad raised me partially physically, and he was there. But when they separated, I was raised mostly by my mom. And I went from my dad telling me, hey, son, how you feeling? And asking me the questions, to now being raised during that separation by my mom telling you, you know, met garçon suyo, which means like, yo, man up.
Man up.
Like, I don't need to hear that you're crying. I don't need to, you know what I mean? So having those different perspectives or those different upbringings, now it gives me more power going into me raising my 11-year-old son. Now, I have a choice with every situation that I run into. Do I acknowledge his feelings, right, as valid, or is he just crying and I just say toughen up? And I find myself doing both.
Yep.
You know, which is not good, right? I need to pick one side, should I, right?
I don't think so. I think there's utility.
It's a
in that.
balance, right?
It's a
Correct.
balance. And that's
It's a
I
balance.
think you're doing some of the protection stuff. You're doing some of the protection because, again, if he goes out there and he is, sometimes that can be looked at as he can't control himself.
Right.
So if a kid can't control themselves, I need to help control this kid.
Yeah.
You know?
Talking about control, when I was young, my parents, I don't know, I was diagnosed, they said I had a social behavior problem. And so I was probably in the 3rd grade and went to the doctor. My parents was like, you know, the teacher would say he can't sit still in class. It wasn't that I couldn't function and do the work. I can do the work. It's just that when the work is done, I'm like, it's playtime. Like, give me something next. Matter of fact, I internalize it now. Like, why do you guys not challenge me?
Right.
Give me something else.
Right.
And so from it not being like challenging me to like, okay, look, we can't deal with him. He needs to be on Ritalin. So my parents, they put me on Ritalin for like a week, right? And my dad was like, look, we're getting him off of this because he's not talking, he's not saying nothing to us. He's not, like, I don't know my son. This ain't him. And so, took me off it, and I was only on it probably for like a week. I'm saying a week, and then my parents, I write about this in my book called Stereotypes of a Black Male. And I talk about that, you know, my mom and dad, they've been married for 40 years. Still married. I know what that looks like. But growing up where I'm in an environment where all my teachers are all white females, they don't understand a black male that's from, my family's from Georgetown, Guyana. You know, so education is a forefront on our table. Behavior just not behaving just because, that's just not the norm.
Right.
So it has to be more. And so for my dad to say, hey, we tried what you guys said, we're gonna keep praying and believing.
There you go.
My dad's a minister, we're gonna keep praying and believing, but we're not gonna do this, we're not gonna put him on drugs at this age for what you guys can't deal with. So we need to go and transfer him to another school, we're gonna
Correct.
do that. And so I think a lot of it, when I went to another public school, I was in a private school at that time, went to a public school, was able to see mentors and teachers that look like you, you're my math teacher, you're the PE coach.
And probably kids that behave the way you.
Right.
Matter of fact, the kids that were really in trouble were behaving worse than me. So I got there, I thought I was doing something. I thought I was like, am I in the right school? Because I'm going to get in trouble. And now it's totally flipped.
Correct.
And so, just dealing with.
Yeah.
I went to another environment where I had people who looked like me, so then the behavior issues, it was no behavior issues no more. Now I'm looking at each black man in the room like, you're my mentor, you're my mentor.
That's a stereotype right there.
Here we go.
That's a stereotype. When you was in other school, they stereotype that
You're stereotyping.
everybody should behave like this. And if you don't behave like this,
Then something's
you're
wrong
not
with
normal.
you. You need to go on Ritalin. That's a problem. So think about it. How many young black men are on Ritalin because of what society, of what the teachers stated to their parents to say, hey, you go when you say your son is blah, 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 he's on this, he needs to get on Ritalin. They getting a check.
Oh, a lot of them. A lot of them.
But nobody talks about the business aspect of what happens when they diagnose your child.
Wait,
Your
let me jump
dad-
in.
okay, go
Let me
ahead.
jump in just a minute, because y'all know I tried to stay out of this
sorry.
conversation. I tried, y'all.
You are more than
I'm
welcome.
sitting in the back of my time, but Doug he kind of poked me. He said two things that poked me. One was the title of the book, right? I think we kind of skipped that word stereotype. There is a stereotype of what our black men ought to be.
Correct.
Forget everything else. So I would like for us to address that perspective. But then I think the analogy that you just made is so important. We're raising a generation, and we've all been saying this, that our kids they're over medical, right? We're just giving them all types of medicine because black boys can't be black boys anymore, right? So how does that eventually lead to the mental health issues that we're seeing as well? Because now we've been medicating them since they were third grade, second grade, first grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Now they in
now,
high school when they look and they acting totally out of control
Exactly.
now.
Right.
Not only that,
okay, so I'm hot back out now.
No, that's
not only that, the acceptance that the young black men might have to go through to say, you know what, I guess whatever I'm doing is a problem. I have to accept with someone else. So it's always an acceptance of someone else.
So mentally, something is wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I know it at this young age, so now I'm gonna act out.
Right,
Correct.
right.
And I'm always questioning myself. I have these desires, these feelings. Is it okay for me to have it? I'm not sure. You know, I don't want to be medicated again.
So then my no, it's real.
It's true.
It's so real. So then my question becomes: now we enter into this the term mental health. It
And again,
it
sorry
comes
to cut you off.
right.
When it's not needed, I have to just put that caveat in there.
Right.
When it's not needed, when it's misdiagnosed, at times it is needed.
Correct.
But at times when it's not needed, come on.
So whenever you encounter the word mental health, you've been drugged, you've been, you know what I mean? They formulated this idea of who you are or who you're supposed to be, right? They gave you the stereotype. They told you how you're supposed to act, how you're supposed to conform. Then you encounter, in different spaces, in different seasons of your life, you encounter the word mental health. The question then becomes, as a black man, what are some of the indicators that help you determine if you're in good mental health or not?
That's a good question.
Sometimes you don't even know.
Ooh, that part.
Just because we dealing with so much.
Yeah.
Dealing with, I gotta be able to provide one day. You know? And so I'm thinking of someone in middle school and high school, and they're not just doing well. In my role at the university I'm at, my role is retention.
Wow.
And it doesn't, certain things that's been happening for years, it's the same thing, just showing its ugly head, just now at the college level.
Correct.
Right.
So then how am I supposed to sit there across the table and say, how can I really help this kid throughout all the things that they have been through in their life? And every time they have gone to seek help, the person just say, okay, we're going to diagnose you with a new thing today.
Correct.
Come back and see me.
Not only
That's a-
that,
that's
you
a-
gotta look at survival.
But there's a reason for that. Because if you check the history of every movement, psychological, sociological movement, the only people that haven't had their just movement is the black man, and here's why. It's because it's not all right for you to be all right. See, when the black woman said that, he put on the Time magazine, right? That's good. I'm just gonna give you an example. Put on Time magazine. 2-3 weeks later,
Right.
you got the football player take off his shirt. He ain't all right either,
Right.
and he's crazy.
Right.
They diagnosed
There you go.
They diagnosed it right on
On the
spot,
field, because he took off, and guess what? He wasn't all right, and he was very clear about it. So guess what? It's not all right for you to be all right as a black man. And so everybody can get their due when it comes to not being all right, and they can be their authentic self. America is all right with everybody being their authentic self but black men.
Oh, man.
All you can be is your artificial self, and you better know how to act at all times. Oh my God, don't not be all right. Oh, don't talk too loud. Don't even put a demand, because we're gonna take your demand and make it look like an aggression.
So let me take a general consensus on your point exactly. Like, we're gonna use the whole case. You brought up the case, Antonio Brown.
Right.
All right. When I heard the post interviews, right, at I'm Athlete and other channels,
Right.
right, and they asked him, why did you respond the way that you did, right?
Right.
In his mind, he was justified.
Correct.
He was like, you came aggressive at me
Right.
as a coach So I responded according to that aggression.
Correct.
Right? So do you guys feel that it was justified, and we'll use him as an example, and one, do you feel it was justified by him responding to that aggression? And number two, was it right to even label him as someone that has mental health issues?
I don't think he was. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that's not the first time that they have addressed him
Right.
regarding that. So I think it's something that's been plagued on him the entire time.
Right.
It was just something they were just waiting for
But
something.
was
to
that
happen.
something that they diagnosed, and now as a result of them labeling him, no matter what action or reaction he does, it goes right back to, yeah, that's why he doing that, because he crazy.
Yeah, the blaming.
Right.
I'm gonna blame it on his mental health.
Right, but you got in the same sport, you got certain white athletes who've I'm talking about literally either psychologically or physically bullied people either for their sexual orientation, and no one ever gave them a
And they
diagnosis.
still in the league.
All right, and, correct.
And still making fun
And
of
some of them may have been what they call it, and they put them in the Hall of Fame as well.
Now that's disrespectful.
There you go. But I'm all right, bro.
You good, bro?
I'm good, bro. That's it.
You guys as athletes, I want to hear from you guys in terms of, because again,
Antonio Brown situation.
right, not only the Antonio Brown situation, but playing the sport of football, like masculinity, right? It's two men going from one side of the field to the other side of the field, 25 miles an hour, smashing heads, right? And that aggression has to come with something emotional in order for you to justify your mind to go straight at that other player. I mean, does mental health play an important role in terms of you being an athlete?
I think it does. If you go to practice daily, you have to be in the same. You got to be in a good mindset. You know what I mean? You don't want to go into practice with a bad mindset. You want to go in there thinking that you're gonna have a good day. You know what I mean? And I think that many times coaches they take that for granted. They don't really look at the players' mental health as a serious thing. You know what I mean? And they just I feel like they disregard it sometimes simply because I think that us playing for them is a benefit for them.
I think they disregard it all the time. It's about productivity. They can give a hoopla about what's going to happen to you 5, 10, 15 years down the line, and I think that's a problem.
Correct.
That's a major problem.
So to add on to what he said with coaches in practice, I think it's. Talk about it.
That's what we're here for. Hey, let me pull my chair. You good? You good, bro? You good, bro? Please say it.
If you're on scholarship, then we
I'm So recently, something happened to me, and I wasn't able to practice or, produce the same way. And, the coaches, I realized that they would act different towards me. Some of them would ignore me, some of them would, what's up, Curves, how you doing? But it's not the same love. I think in the football aspect, they didn't see that. As long as I could produce and be productive on the field, then, yeah, what's up, Curves, we love you. But as soon as I came, it's like, oh yeah, what you doing here? Why you talking to me like this? You feel me? And don't get me wrong, they great individuals. I've had conversations with them outside of school, I can say they like me, I don't know deep down, but in that football aspect, they only cared that I could produce for them. In that moment, they didn't care what I had going on, how's my morning going, or is this affecting me as well? Is this thing I got on the field, is it affecting me outside of football? And, to be honest, it was. I would go back to my room and be like, damn, I can't play. You feel me? And I'm over there trying to kill myself to get back on the field as soon as possible.
Right.
But since I'm not on the field, they don't care.
Take that level, and I love what you said. We're not gonna move past that. Take that same playing field, and let's switch that and make the playing field life. Because I think a lot of us, even though we might not all be athletes, we side with that in life as black men. When we don't perform, when our counterparts, are very light skinned to say the least, when they don't perform, they get a pass.
Correct.
Right? I work in I work in higher education, right? And in my particular position, I'm the only black man of color, right? Only black man in my department. right? And I think for us as black men, we face that in our different spaces. As a husband, as a father, as a community impact leader, wherever we are. I mean, do you all feel that way when you always have to be on performance mode in order for people to justify you being a good person or a man of stature?
Yeah, I can't have a bad day. That's pretty much what it is.
He said it. He said it too. He said, "I have to have a good day every day." But to really think about it, can I really sustain that?
Right.
And for how long?
Right.
It's draining. It's draining, you know, to have a good day every day.
It's draining.
You know, at school, I do a lot of stuff at school, and you know, sometimes I feel like I can't really, be myself. Sometimes, you know, I have to.
The mask.
Hey, so I love wearing suits. You know, I'm Haitian. You
Oh,
know,
yeah,
suits.
yeah.
But you know, sometimes.
Hey, you good?
But you know, sometimes I'm at school. I'm like, I gotta wear this suit. You know, it's not. You know, no one's forcing me to wear a suit. You know, I love wearing suits. You know, I grew up watching my dad. You know, everyone in Haiti wears suits. So I always want to do that. You know, ever since I was a kid. They wear shirt suits, play basketball.
With the church top.
But you know, sometimes I feel like, you know, I can't really be myself. I gotta be, you know, this guy that everyone expects me to be. I gotta be, you know, this vocalist, you know, this. I love being an activist. But sometimes I feel like I can't really take that mask off, as you said. Like to my friend right here, you know, he knows me, you know, because we crack jokes, we partners. So I can't take that outside the room and do that. They're gonna look at me out. Oh, he's tripping. He's aggressive. He's intimidating. And I've heard all those labels. I've heard that intimidating. Some I'm not even gonna say threatening lightly, but
I think that even if you try to match that, even with a suit, I think that still intimidates a lot of people too. Because I think that as a black man, they don't expect you to wear a suit every day.
Wow.
You know, because me and him, we wear suits. We all wear suits at school sometimes.
Y'all the best dressed.
But they just seeing like if you want to go to the music industry, you see rappers, they be sagging and stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's what they expect us to do. We come there with a suit on. It's kind of like what he up to. You know what I mean? Wow. It's like he got power now. You think you strong now?
And to add on to that,
that's how it is.
And that's something that we've heard. Like we've heard, oh, those guys always look like they're up to something. All we do is wear suits and hang out with each other. You feel me? And I'm like, all of a sudden everyone's scared of me. I'm like, what we doing? Like,
Maybe you're gonna rob the stock market.
You'll think somehow.
Like, trust me, I've heard all of it. I've heard, oh, we move like the mob. You feel me? All we do is wear suits. Like, I've heard. But one thing I want to add to what he said about the sagging, and I've always said this. I said that I realized that I've gotten in more trouble while wearing a suit than I've had with my pants down.
Wow. Jeez.
Because the expectation is for you to be not educated, not informed, and to dress the part that they think you should. So once you start dressing away
From that.
now there's a problem.
But it also shows no matter how you dress, it's still gonna be that now. And so I think sometimes we have to, because we got to sit at this table and know we're not a different type of black man. Even though I'm telling you, certain industries and institutions will make you try to think you that. And then so that divide and conquer you got on the shores of America still exists. There's a making you think you're a different type of black guy when you're really not. And so at the end of the day, or better yet, I had to rephrase that. At the beginning of the day, because maybe that's the problem. We deal with things at the end of the day when we should have dealt with it at the beginning of the day. And so with that, I lost my train of thought, so I'm gonna let somebody else go. And see, I gotta be vulnerable about that because when you use it, I know you see me trying to make something up.
And it's okay for that to happen.
Right.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. In this space, it's okay. Once you get out there, it becomes a problem.
Correct.
You know, I think one of the things too that what happens is that as we're talking, you know, it starts to segue into other areas. Like for example, right, it may be happening in the work area, you know, you in football, but then when you're in your family area, and you might be, for example, dating or you married, and then you may have these same type of things where they expect you to be just good every day. And if you have a bad day, it's like, man, I can't have a bad day. I gotta be good every day. That's a really high expectation, a high level expectation. And I think it frustrates a lot of black men.
Right.
It frustrates us because, again, there goes that thing again where they expect us to have this capacity. Oh, man, he's a big, strong black man. He should be able to take it all. He should be able to take this and some.
Yeah, I think I have to do a lot of self-examination to see how much of it is society expecting me to be hyper-productive and to do good every day versus it being self-imposed. Because I do recognize that we do have to work twice as hard, 4 times as hard, just to go half as far. And so if I don't become hyper-productive, then I don't even go a tenth as far. And so there's a mixture of society having these expectations for you to be great every day, even in your worst day.
Correct.
But then there's also the recognition that, if I slow down right now, then it's not slowing down, it's going back.
You're not meeting the mark, your own mark.
I'm not
Right.
meeting my own mark.
Correct.
And I think there are certain personality traits that if you're high in conscientiousness, I know you're a psychologist, so you understand this more better than I do. If you're high in conscientiousness and industriousness, then you can work extremely hard and it wouldn't be a problem at all. But not everyone is like that. And so this is just a moment of vulnerability in understanding myself. Like me, like after this, I got a bunch of things to do after. And I just came from work all day and I have all of these commitments that I'm doing after this.
Right.
And this happens every single day. And it's like, but in my mind, it's like, what would happen if I don't do this? Like, would I be where I am now 10 years from now? Like, if I wasn't hyper-productive at the age of 22, would I be a professor now at the age of 27?
I think the question is when you ask that question, what answer do you give it to yourself?
Right,
What would happen if I don't do this?
Well, the answer I tell myself is no, I wouldn't be where I would want to be because there's no free lunch. So my mindset is no one is handing anything out to me. And so I have to go and get it. And like Ishmael, how about to say Brother Ishmael?
That's all right. Hey,
When I met him 12 years ago, I was calling him Brother Ishmael.
Yeah, that's good.
you good, bro?
You good, bro? Yeah.
I'm still say brother. See now I lost my train of thought. But go ahead. What was the question again?
I'm going to say that just to piggyback off what you said is that self-actualization is really important because when you answer that question, that answer it has to make sense. You have to make sure, not make sure, but you have to ask yourself: is this answer coming from somebody else, or is it coming from me myself? Like I'll be transparent as well. Coming from a Haitian household as well. I remember growing up, and my mom would always tell me, "You talk too much." And when they would say that, they wouldn't say it like that. They would say, "Vous parlez comme une femme."
Yes.
You talk like a woman.
Yeah.
You talk so much, it's like you're a woman. I'm like, why are you trying me like this? You're putting me in a state. And again, I just want to express myself. That's probably why I went to the mental health field. That's probably why I became a counselor. But again, she said it in that way. So again, if I was to answer that question, if I had some doubts, and I was to answer my question, I'm talking too much. And then I answer it as if, they may perceive me as a girl, as a woman. I may be feminine. So now if I begin to answer that question in that traumatic state,
Wow.
because I never dealt with that trauma,
Right.
and it's like, okay, now I'm gonna be quiet. I'm gonna lessen myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you gotta be careful when you're answering that question and really asking yourself, man, have I dealt with some of these issues? So with my mom, I remember having this kind of stand thing with her. Because again, for me to really understand my mental health, I had to really not only challenge her, but challenge a lot of people on how I see things and just be like, you know what? I do talk a lot and I'm okay with that. And then I had to, and then our arguments became less. Our situations became less because now I began to understand her, I began to understand myself, and I was okay with that. And I didn't put it as her label for me, or anybody else's label for me. So other people will put labels on you. Do we accept those labels?
Yeah. So even given some of those external factors, right? The relationships we have with people that are outside, right? Our parents or our brothers and sisters, right? That mention these things and some of these things that we internalize in and of ourselves and sometimes become the makeup of who we are. I want to kind of take a shift in talking about something that happened externally within our country that changed the landscape of mental health as we know it. But in particular for us as black men, COVID. Let me ask you guys a question. As it relates to COVID, what impact do you feel that it had, whether it was positive or negative? Because it could be both sides of the equation, right? You could have had a positive impact on your mental health or a negative impact. What impact did it have upon you going through this series in COVID and the pandemic as a black man? I mean, in terms of your mental health. What impact was there for you?
So,
You would answer.
hey, and we got a little story for Kobe.
You got a story for COVID?
So our friend group, we all got COVID. Like basically, the whole family.
Y'all really are team.
Yeah. So I got COVID and then he got COVID. He's got stuck in the room. But during that time though, I went to the monastery and I had to stay there for 10 days because I had COVID. So during that time, I'm just sitting there, you know what I mean? I'm just thinking about life. I'm like, what am I doing here? You know what I mean? I'm just like, why is God putting me through this? You know what I mean? It's like I'm on the third day. The lights are closed off. I'm asleep. I wake up. I turn on the light. I see a tarantula in the corner. I get a slide, slap it. But after that, man, I'm going through it. I'm like, the only person I got to depend on is my mom, God. But I'm not praying in there. So I'm like, where? God is not on this physical earth, so who can I depend on this physical earth? You know what I mean? I think that's the question sometimes. I'm like, who can I depend on this physical earth? Because God, you can't really touch God, but they tell you to have faith in him, but you can't really feel him.
Right.
But I'm just like, but I think that after that, God kept his promise, and he you really stayed here. You know what I mean? Because I was going through it. I was really thinking about some serious stuff, like for real.
Yeah.
But God was with me. So,
COVID to do that to you.
Add on to what he said about COVID.
What's the correct way to say it?
He said,
Let me fix the record.
Right.
I was mad at him because I got COVID from him. But he wanted to be mad at me, act like I'm about to get COVID. So we were beefing for those 10 days. But the thing about COVID is, I thank God, and it might sound wrong when I say this. I thank God because COVID happened, but let me finish. COVID took me down a bit. I went into a dark place. Like I said before, I didn't understand coming from that background. I didn't understand what was going on over there. I'm like, oh, why I feel like this? Why my head like this? I'm stuck in the room. I don't want to go out and talk to nobody. Social media is even messing with me. I don't even want to. I'm not even eating. I'm gaining weight. I'm like, what's going on? But so now to clarify why I said thank God it happened. I think if COVID never happened, maybe I wouldn't have got on this path. The organization I started at school, which is why all of us hang out together and all of us wear these suits, it's called Open Eyes. And I created it during COVID because I took a look, so I really got into Malcolm X during that time.
Okay.
I love Malcolm X, I'm not gonna lie to you, but I look at it and I was like, why is the community like this? And I created the organization. I said, I want to better the community by bettering myself. I started reading the Bible a lot, read the whole Bible, but prayed to God a lot. And I really feel like if COVID never happened, maybe I wouldn't got on this path. Now, don't get me wrong, everything I'm doing today is everything I wanted to do when I was a kid. But I always wanted to wear these suits again. But I never knew how that was going to happen. When COVID happened, I went to that dark place. I didn't understand it. When I finally created the organization and we started, doing all the stuff I said we was going to do, feeding the homeless, mentorships, and actually becoming better people. At the time, I didn't understand it. It probably took till about a couple months ago. I really realized it. I sat down. I'm like, wow, maybe this happened for a reason. COVID was terrible. I've lost a couple people, during that time. And, many of us have lost people. And it was terrible. But like I said, maybe it happened for me to get on this path. I always wanted to be here. I just didn't know how I was going to get here. You know, to add on to the whole God aspect, maybe this was God's way of putting me on this path.
Correct.
It's good. What about you, gentlemen? I mean, what was it like in terms of your mental health and going through COVID?
I caught it from my wife, who caught it from her beautician,
Oh man.
who in essence just interfered with my Cat William concert. I had this series of comedy shows already set up, and this was heading into Cat Williams. So I'm like, listen, as long as we pass this COVID thing by the time this concert come up, you understand, we good.
Look at the timeline.
Right, I'm looking at that. I'm looking at the timeline. They gave us the whole 14 days. I had to give the tickets away.
Wow.
And so I'm betwixt. Somebody's like, you were more concerned about the Cat Williams than dying? I'm like, yes.
You needed that.
Right. And, but what it did, it was,
You needed that laugh.
yeah, I needed that. So what happened was, it made me realize with her, because you see a lot of people was getting divorces in COVID. Me and my wife grew closer. Because that, for sickness or health, rich or poor, really kicked in and made sense for me. And it showed us the validity of our love for each other.
Right.
Because we did everything, and then we just took that COVID sickness and made that a date too. You understand? So you got to sometimes create your own therapy. And so when we went, and then we went to the hospital and got the different treatment, I'm like, I'm triple vaccinated. People are triple vaccinated, like, yeah, I got the first shot, the second shot, and the antibodies. And we just happened to be in the right place at the right time. So while we sitting there with the antibodies, our relationship, without even trying, ministered to the nurses that was there. They were like, wow, y'all, how long y'all been married? And they just had this a whole hour of just talking to us about our marriage. I'm like, I'm not really here to give no marriage counseling. You understand? But
Send them the invoice.
right. But then it dawned on me and said, you know what? I'll be dog. And I think this is the issue with black men. That I think maybe I can speak for every black man, and I rarely do that, but I think I can safely speak for every
Come
black
on, you good, bro.
The issue for black men is, I'm like, listen, we got to stop negotiating whether people like us or not, and stop putting a demand on people loving us. I don't need you to like me. I need you to love me. And that's it. See, everybody can say that and probably get it. I think when the guy, I can't remember his name now, the comedian who owned all the television stations, black guy. Not Steve Harvey, no.
Talking about
I can't think of his name.
Byron Wood.
Byron, yeah.
Byron
So Byron's on the show, and he was saying, he was one of the guy, the Breakfast Club, and they was talking about Barack Obama presidency, and he said they asked him why did you think why didn't Obama do enough for black people? And his question was because we didn't have an ask. And I'm like, I had to even eat that answer. I'm like, he's right. And so this is what it comes back. How it comes back to black men is because we haven't had an ask. We didn't tell people that we need them to love us, just like they need us to love them. America wants always have a demand on black men loving it. But when is the black man going to ask America to love us? And so we have to put a demand on that and keep that demand, because when America loves us, then we have all of America loving us, because that's the only thing that's stopping our wives,
Right.
our society, our community, and everything else from loving us.
Right.
When we put a demand on America loving us.
Absolutely.
Quickly about the COVID issue.
Right.
Honestly, I thank God that my relationship with my wife, again, it's the relationship, is as strong as it has been.
Right.
Because she works in the hospital. And man, it was tough in the beginning, her coming home, and I can see the worry on her face. And for weeks, it was almost kind of draining on me, right? Just because I had to bear that load, because she's losing patience. Everyone around her is getting COVID, and thank God. My wife and I, we never caught COVID. And she's deep in this whole epidemic, this pandemic, if you want, pandemic. So a lot of the times when she would come home, I think it was because I was in a better mental state that it kind of helped our marriage, because I had to kind of, in a way, take that burden away from her and still let her come home and say, baby, it's going to be all right. And every night it was, baby, you're going to make it. You're going to make it through this, Even though me inside, I was a little worried. I never told her that. But I'm like, man, if I ever lose my you know. So it was tough, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, we would even make.
Sound like
It was
inside
kind of
joke.
fun in a way because, like in the beginning, as much as I'm kind of taking on this burden,
Right.
you know, I'm sleeping with a towel on my face and our head is turned the other way. But again,
Don't cough. Don't even think about coughing. Don't even hold that.
you know, but at the same time, I laughed about it, but it also told me that, man, had I not over 20 years developed this strong relationship, man, it could have break us. You know, some guys see your wife come home every day complaining, honey, I lost another patient, honey. You know, I'm like, man, I'm tired of this. But again, it's that relationship aspect that we built. Man, I'm telling you, to this day, thank God, we've never, I mean, even my son and daughter caught it and we never caught it,
Yeah.
right? But again, it's just because, and that's what's important about building that relationship with your spouse, man.
Right.
It's so important because you never know when you're going to have to lean on that for some support at some point, you know, and it just happens to be, you know, during this time. But she never knew about it, a lot of it.
You know now. I will say this about COVID, and then we'll transition into one of our last questions, man, as we wrap up our discussion. COVID, if you had pre-existing conditions physically, right? COVID exposed them.
Yeah.
But I want to take that same idea behind pre-existing conditions and wrap it around our mental health.
That's good.
Because I feel like COVID revealed if we had any pre-existing conditions mentally as Black men. COVID was the trigger of an already loaded gun. So whether you were in a good space to where you had a strong relationship and you're able to conquer and get over, or whether you struggled when you had the health issue and you was wondering, am I gonna make it out alive? I literally was in my house, quarantined from my family for 3.5 weeks. Being in a physical place where I can't touch somebody who's literally 10 feet away from me. There was a lot of pre-existing conditions of things mentally, right, that I never worked out. And I think for us as men, I'm glad that we went through it because it revealed the true matters of our heart. So these situations, like you said, sometimes they work out for our good, all right? And I'm glad that we're able to embrace it. Anybody else want to say anything last about COVID and your own mental health before we take a shift?
No, I'll agree with you. Go ahead.
I was going to say mentally at that time, I think this was 2018, 2019, I got COVID, and at the time I was working as a flight attendant.
When did you get COVID?
I think it was 2000, may have been 2019.
The early part of it.
The early part, when,
Right.
when they
When
didn't
they
know what it was.
right.
I just happened to get sick. I was working the flight on a plane, and immediately I just knew it was something just went wrong. I'm like, I don't feel good. This don't make no sense, and I was down for like 2 weeks. Went to the doctor, they didn't know what it was. They're like, you probably got the flu. I'm like, I never had the flu before, so I don't know what are you guys talking about. So mentally, because I didn't know what it was, there was nothing talking about COVID at the time. We were just talking about there's something that's out there that's getting people sick. And so mentally, nothing, I was like, look, I'm gonna beat it. In my mind, I don't know what it is, but you know, obviously, I got healthy, kept on working, and then I'm thinking to myself, like, dang, it could have took me out. Right. You know, because at one point at night, I was like, damn, I can't breathe. But in my mind, mentally, I was like, I'm good. Yeah. If I die today, God, I'm good.
Bro, you ain't good.
I just told myself that. I'm good. Manifest mentally. I was like, man, I'm good. But, you know, I did lose family members to COVID, just like everybody else. So, you know, it was tough for the family aspect.
And us kind of getting through it, man, it's so important to show how resilient we really are as Black men to fight through any kind of physical, right, or even mental issues that get thrown our way, man. Guys, as we close, as we get ready to wrap up our time, man, I really appreciated this conversation, right, surrounding mental health. But I gotta ask this last question. As black men, we carry our families upon our backs. Our children watch and see all that we experience, whether we say it verbally or not, right? So my question is, based upon the context of our own backstories and our own life experiences, what kind of message do we want to relay, if you don't have any kids, right, to maybe your younger self, or if you do have kids, your younger self, because they look like you, your kids, right? What kind of message do we want to relay to our young black boys and girls concerning mental health? What message we want to leave for them?
It's okay. It's okay to open up. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to come to me. It's okay to feel different types of things. It's okay to explore. It's okay to do that. And I'm going to provide a safe space for you to do that. If I provide that safe space for you to do that, then we can navigate it together. And if we navigate those things together, then I can help you in those areas. There's no way I can help you if we never open up that box, that Pandora box. So I just want to make sure that it's okay. I always try to teach my daughter that, hey, you know, I do a mixture, like a balance like you.
Right.
You know, but at the same time, I always let her know that, you know, come to me.
Right.
You know, even if you're upset, even if I'm upset, I'm still going to create this space for you to be able to say what's on your mind. You know, kids are always, I'm ready to talk. They're ready to give it to you. You know, so sometimes when you open that, say, you know, you give them that power in a sense. You say, man, I can't believe I gave her that power. Am I ready to give her that power? But yeah, you are. Because you still want her, you want to prepare her. You want to keep her safe at the same time. But
Right.
I want to prepare her.
Right.
I want to prepare her mentally.
Right.
You know, I want to prepare our boys to be able to navigate those type of things and to do those things early on. You know.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I would say.
Let's do a round robin.
Okay. I would let them know, and particularly our black boys, but our black girls as well, that your expression is not an oppression. And so nobody has the right to oppress you for your expression because they don't feel like you expressed yourself in the way they thought seemed fit. You do the best that you can and leave that conversation on that situation with your authentic self, not an artificial person. You understand? And I think we have to raise and cater to the total man our children are. That's it.
Well, y'all better snap y'all fingers with that. My brother.
But I'm just, second on what both of them said. But it was also important in my life, well, my wife and I, as fathers, sometimes when you, like I have a son and I have two daughters, and sometimes my son is more comfortable going to my wife with some issues, right? And there's and sometimes I say, well, why you didn't come to me? I'm the one who can explain it better.
Right.
But as men, sometimes we get in our ego because we are so-called men, and I'm like, but baby, you can handle that,
Right.
You can handle that.
Right.
And same thing with my daughter. Sometimes I'll driving home from school, and she'd say, Dad, can I ask you a question? Sure, baby, And then my wife may feel, well, how come she never asked me that?
Right. Right.
But you have to give your kids that space where they feel comfortable going to whichever parent they choose to go to and say, listen, I need to talk to you about this. And the other parent shouldn't get jealous or envious that, why are you going to her? Why, And I think as parents, you struggle with that. And it doesn't end, as you get older. I mean, I have a granddaughter now, and I'm telling my, man, how are we going to handle this when she begins to talk, But again, you evolve and you keep learning, and then you got to realize that all of your kids are different, right? And you got to accept in that way and kind of respond to who they are and not trying to like, well, you should, no. So this is things that we've learned over the years, and but again, and it's important for them to at least have an open channel that they can come to either parent and discuss whatever it is that they're going through.
Absolutely. For our three men here, right, I'm coming to you last, that don't have any children, what would you say to your younger self surrounding your younger black boy? If you had a chance to look at yourself 10 years ago or 10 years back, what would you say to your younger self concerning mental health?
I'd probably say find a good friend. You're gonna need somebody in the those rough times. Like I know growing up, I didn't know who God really was until I started getting older. Like you don't really know who God is till you start growing in that faith and you start going through some stuff. But I think that when you're younger, you need that friend to tell you that things gonna be all right. I'm going through the same stuff. Find a common friend, and I think that's what makes the black church, not the church in general, just the church in general, that the community around you, you can depend on another if you're going through some stuff. So I think that's important to have a community when you're at that age. That's what I would tell my younger self.
Can I give this message to my future kids?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. That's very cold.
You good, bro?
Yeah, absolutely.
When it comes to mental health, I want to tell them, don't be like me. And I say that is because I bottle everything in. You guys, this man right here, like, some bad stuff that happened to me, and they see me laughing, cracking jokes, and they like, good? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Like, and I'm talking to them as if nothing just happened. And you know, one of the situations was, my sister died or whatever. And I shouldn't have said it like that. Like,
No, it's okay.
No, we know.
But, and I come back to school. This was the week we had to go back for football, and I go back and everyone see me, and then I disappear, and then that's when they find out, I had to go bury her, and I come back and I'm acting normal. So I bottle all those stuff in, and something I want to tell my future kids is, don't be like me, be better than me, and I hope by the time that they're here, I can fix those unresolved issues, and I can be, I can be better. It's okay to cry.
It
It's
is.
okay to cry.
Absolutely.
It's okay to talk to people. Something I don't do, and that's I'm gonna blame that on my culture. On being Haitian. It's okay to talk to people. It's okay to show emotions. Like these guys be thinking,
You gonna hit your toe against the wall.
All right, so this is the joke. I tell him that one day, like, I know this is gonna catch up to me, like, all these emotions, and it's just one day randomly, like, I'm gonna be with my kids, and I'm gonna hit my toe, and I'm gonna just start crying.
So you can justify it.
Like, something might gonna happen to me, I'm gonna just start crying, like, bawling like a baby. And I be cracking jokes, and I'm be like, yeah, man, like, I know one day it's gonna catch up to me. And the message I can give to my future kids is, really don't let that happen. Like, it's okay to cry. It's okay to be a child. You don't have to be an adult just yet. Like, I'm only 20, and I feel like, you feel me? Like, like I'm only 20, and I come from my culture. It's like, at a young age, I had to be older than I was. I was treated older than I was. I'm a big guy, so I was always told, "You too big for that. You too big to be crying. You too big to be cracking jokes, laughing, running around." So I can say that I've been crying like years, like probably since I was a baby. It's okay to cry.
They put on us.
It's okay, man. I drive to work some nights crying. So it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, crying in joy. I'm just saying.
You don't enjoy your work,
Tell
brother?
you something.
You on the work like, I don't want to go nowhere.
So mine, I'm gonna just start crying, like something break, and I'm gonna just start crying.
It's
I
all right.
know.
It's all right. Got you, man. Yep.
Every time I hear what you tell yourself 10 years ago, like, I didn't even hear you say mental health. My mind was just like, 10 years ago, buy Bitcoin.
Aye. Oh boy. These guys, man. You know guys in this investing fad, man. Bitcoin is like the Mary Kay for young men.
Right. It's a good analogy. It's a very good analogy.
No, but I mean, honestly, if I'm talking to myself, 10 years ago, I mean, so last year my uncle passed away, and I mean, him and I we were close. We weren't like buddy, like we weren't going to soccer games together. But he was like, he was just a shining example of excellence. I'll just say I wish I spoke to him more. And I mean, I don't know if that would have helped me my mental health better or not, but definitely, that when I think about mental health now, that's all I think about.
Talk to those loved ones.
Yeah. So that's what I'll tell myself about for
I
it.
think with mental health, the busyness of the world keeps us away from dealing with our mental health. You know, so like you said, you got a lot on your plate. You know, you're doing a lot, which is good. But again, reflecting, you would tell yourself, you know, just do those check-ins. Because, you know, those check-ins are part of our mental health. But again, the world, society, you know, to put that capacity, you know, and sometimes, you know, we put it on ourselves, and sometimes the world just says, you know, you can do it. You can do it. You can do those check-ins as well. I like that.
Listen, you good, bro.
Yeah.
We got you. We got you, man. Now to the new dad.
Talk about check-ins. Me and my fiance did that today. And I think I gave her a 4-page letter.
That's an overdue check-in.
dissertation?
That's an overdue check-in. That's a late paper.
And it's crazy because we were just, I'm at work. She texted me, she said, baby, I'm just checking on you, good? Which she would normally, check in, hey, you good? Yeah, I'm good. Just, No, she said it back again, like, no, for real, like, are you really good? I'm checking in on you. I was like, nah. And it was crazy because I'm in my office and I'm really like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm really going on in this right now. So talk about bottling up things and we're doing so much. I just became a new dad, so my daughter's 3 weeks old. And so we're, trying to be in that space of making sure she gets enough time with herself. I'm working, I get home, let me get the baby, give her time to I'm getting up early because we have a blended family. She has a son, this is my first child, this is her second. So for me, it's a lot, right? To be honest with you, it's a lot. Like, new family, just got engaged, got a baby, new job, trying to balance it all, and then trying to make sure that your mental space is in order. And it's a lot. So today we were texting, she was like, wow. She's like, babe, I think we need a vacation. I said, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I don't know where it's gonna come in, but I know that we got a lot going on. And so it's good to make sure that you have, I think you mentioned it, have a friend. Have somebody that's, I watched the I'm an Athlete podcast, and they do this thing where they say, hey, man, I'm checking in. On what scale? We're talking about business, personal, what level.
Right.
And I think we need to do that a lot as brothers, making sure that we check in with each other because, sometimes we dressed up, we got our family, we look good on the outside, suited and booted.
Yeah.
But the inside, we over here like
We just
clawing, just trying to keep our heads above sea level, keep our heads above the water. So I just want to let my daughter know it's okay. It's okay to fail. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to not just be okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to get fired. It's okay to lose that job. It's okay that whatever happens in your life, it's okay. Because for me, it wasn't okay. And so I bottled up everything that had happened to me in my life in regards to losing a job, trying to figure out what I'm going to do, and you probably didn't hear this, but I went to start my first doctorate program, and I was in the wrong program. It didn't work out. And I was like, okay, quit. Went to another program. Like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And then trying to make sure that I'm balancing, figuring out who you are, job, financially, what am I going to be doing before I get a family? That's why me having a family started later, because I was focusing on me. Now I'm in a different
Yeah, different
It's
space.
a different space now.
Yeah.
Now I can't just get up and go when I want to go. Oh, I'm not talking to you right now. You can't just leave.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I can't just be like, I'm not going to work today. You know what I'm saying? So
Facts, man.
those are some real things, you know, that is like, I see it as challenges. And it's, you know, being in a space like this, thank you for inviting me, but being in a space like this to have these conversations with like-minded individuals that we're all going through different things, and that we can be able to be in a safe space to share it, I think that's dope.
Absolutely.
Staycation, by the way, you can do a staycation.
Staycation, boy. Oh, I love them staycations, man. Well, listen, man, as we wrap up, and before I bring up Dr. Shirley to kind of close us out, man, I just want to leave us with some parting words.
Stay church, bro.
Just threw your whole game off. This
It's okay,
you
my
got to
brother.
close. It's
Keep
okay.
You good, bro.
You good, bro?
You did a great job this entire night.
You're right. It's that Lego. It's that Lego, right? It's all in me, right? I wanted to say, man, concerning mental health, man, please, fellas, don't be afraid to start over again. Because this time, you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from experience.
That's a bar.
Okay? So don't be afraid. Like you said, that you hit it right on the nail, man. Sometimes you got to start over. Sometimes you got to reset. And it's okay. It's all right to say that I'm not okay. I need help. I need to start this thing over again. I need to get back on another path. So don't be afraid to start over again. Because this time you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from experience. Okay? We don't have to be victims of our environment. We can be the architect of it. All right? So I'm going to hand it back over to Dr. Shirley. Come on, let's...
All right.
Great job, man.
So you have this way of getting out the question. So what would you tell your 11-year-old son about mental health? You didn't think I was gonna let you off the hook, bro?
Man, cry if you need to, bro. Because for me, that was the thing that I was always told. Don't cry. Don't cry. Even on my wedding day, dancing with my mom. You know the dance with your mom. And it's an emotional moment for me. Right? And I can remember like, when that cry started coming from like here. That joint that's about to rise, your chest gets swollen up, all that, and it's coming, and I'm dancing with her, and she looks at me, she sees I'm about to like have that moment, and she grabs my hand, she said, "Hey." And she's smiling. Make that so soon. Be a man. And it was all good intention.
Right.
It was all love, right? Because she was like, I don't want you to ruin this moment by you well. But again, that was a sore spot for me because I was always told that. So my 11-year-old son, I said, listen, I'm going to let you get your moment. Get it all out. And then let's find productive ways to be able to resolve whatever issue that you have. So for me, cry it out, dog.
Bingo.
Cry it out.
Wow. I never regret doing this. This is actually one of my favorite events because we always have events with hundreds of people. But to get folks around the table that genuinely want to be around the table, for those of you who have been here before, expect you're going to keep getting an invitation. That doesn't change, right? And to the newcomers, we hope you will come back when we invite again. These conversations are important because we're not having them. One, because people are afraid to have them. Two, because a lot of what you guys said, men feel like I'm not in a space, I'm not allowed to have these conversations. But I also further understand that until we begin to comfortably, one, allow ourselves to have these conversations, but more importantly, understand that these conversations are the catalyst to help our young people so that we can get more of y'all, produce more of y'all that want to do good things. These conversations must continue to happen. Every one of you standing or sitting in this room right now, either have your own children, you stand in the gap for a young person, you're playing the role of a mentor or something. You're standing in the gap for another man that either don't want to be a dad, can't be a dad, or, unable to be a dad because of situations. And we never want to forget that we have kids that are looking up. We have young people that are looking up, and we have young black men who are growing up and are dying to have a figure to look up to. So these are not just conversations. We're hoping that the people that are listening, the people that are watching, share this, share the opportunity, because if at least somebody else can play this in their home and somebody else is listening, y'all know I'm big on sharing the message. It's really each one teach one, but more importantly, it's each one reach one, and this is what it's about. Each one of you may not be able to get someplace else, but with all of us doing this in the time of social media, if we can catapult these conversations into places where they aren't happening, then collectively we've definitely impacted and changed the history of our people. Absolutely. So I thank y'all for being here. We will have the same conversation with some women. I guarantee y'all it's a whole different conversation. It should be there. He's always a part of these conversations, but we're asking, so this will drop. We're hoping to have it drop before the end of Black History Month. Again, I say, you guys are history. We can talk about Black history and the history, but we're making history every day. Every time we come together and you guys can ask each other, you okay, bro? Whether it's a statement or a question.
Right.
And it means we're not pulling out a gun to shoot each other, that we're already making progress, right? So I'm asking that when we drop it, celebrating you as we celebrate Black History Month, share it with some other people. Make sure you get it out there, because the reality is we need to begin to change our narrative. We are our narrative. And if we're not telling it, damn it, somebody else gonna tell it for us.
Correct.
So I thank you guys for taking time out of your busy schedule. Please thank your fiance for allowing you to hang out with us this long. I know how I was, like, look here now.
Salute, Chief.
Salute to you, Chief, and to you guys who accepted the invitation last minute. You guys were a great addition. Your voices are needed. I'm a firm believer in saying we need more of y'all young people in the space. We can't keep talking for y'all and about y'all.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that you guys are in the space to speak for yourselves. And to all of my partners that continue to answer the call and the text and the love, know that the love comes from a genuine place. We hope that you enjoyed this edition of Black Men, Black Love, the Mental Health Edition. Let's each one reach one, and let's try to save each other. Y'all have a good night. Thank you for joining us.
You good, bro? I'm good. All right.